100 million people died. Has there been anything like it? We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal,
problems
bacon,
overlap
or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy, and all you have to do is look at a poll.
So everyone's shitting on each other for stuff that was carried over for other people's administration.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point.
Oh, come on, guys.
When we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
But didn't Biden invite Xi Jinping to San Francisco? See, this is what I'm talking about. Everyone's like, oh, you did so bad. Ooh, you're so bad. And they both ingratiated, I don't know if that's the word, themselves to Xi Jinping at some point.
My philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy, but if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it would be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well.
Oh man, I've never voted for him, but it's funny as fuck.
And when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly,
I've never
I
voted
believe
for
21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. Just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals, and that's bad for our economy too. You know, you mentioned before. We'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have
always vote third party.
Destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion.
What are you talking about now?
You often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history.
Pro-life.
Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that.
I feel like
because
that's
that
probably been taken out of context.
The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it.
Oh, well,
he hates. Pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me. Hence the vote. Well, what I did is something for
post-birth abortion.
years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio,
I guess
the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal.
Like
much more
I
liberal
showed
than
people
But each individual state
on my own feed.
It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I
it
did a great
probably
service
should
in
have
doing
been
it. It took
brought
courage to do
back
it.
to the
And
States
the
at
Supreme
some
Court
point.
had great courage in doing it. And I give
'Cause,
tremendous credit to those
RBG.
6 justices.
There is
RBG,
no
the great
state in this
RBG,
country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's
said
born.
that,
Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to
oh, snap.
President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies.
RBG
and that's not
said that,
actually a surprising fact.
they want to get
Let's understand how we
they
got
want to get
here.
Roe v. Wade. They want to get the win, and that was the main goal.
3 members of the United States Supreme Court
Unfortunately,
with the
she
intention
knew that,
they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade.
That there would
And they did
some point in
exactly
time,
as he intended. And now in over 20
it might be the
states,
case
there
that
are Trump
this happens,
abortion bans,
that the
which make it criminal
the Supreme Court
for
becomes
a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life.
conservative
Trump
again,
abortion bans
and
that
ends
make
up
no
getting rid of
exception
Roe v.
even
Wade.
for
So
rape
it's
and
like
incest,
take the
which
win when you
understand
can.
what that
Now it's
means.
basically it.
A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot.
Well, I've seen a bunch of conservatives that say that they're fine with abortions for if they allow the woman to survive, right?
Pregnancy to term? They don't want that. And I pledge to you,
I don't know. I feel like she's
when
going up
Congress
against the straw
passes a bill
conservative.
to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand,
Or, you know,
if Donald Trump
it's
were
not
to
the-
be reelected, he will sign a national
I
abortion
think
ban.
the-
Understand, in his
I don't know, I
project
think she's talking around the
2025,
issue
there
about
would
that.
be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages.
Because, you
I
know,
think
she
the
sounds
American
reasonable,
people
but
believe
then, you know,
that certain
you
freedoms,
get to the point
in
where
particular the
you
freedom to make
understand these are
decisions
just two
about one's own
politicians.
body,
They will speak around
not be
the
made by the government.
subject.
Thank you, Vice President
you
Harris.
know,
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie.
Well,
And
did
as
you
far
do
as an
anything?
abortion ban,
You appointed
no, I'm not in favor of abortion bans,
justices
but it
because
doesn't matter,
you're the
because
president.
This issue has now
Biden
been
would have
taken over
appointed
by the
what
states.
in
Would you
26.
veto a
Hillary
national
Clinton would
abortion
have
ban if it
appointed
were
her own
Have to, because
justices.
again,
I don't know if this is like
number
a
one,
win
she said she'll go
for
back to Congress. She'll never
for
get the
him
vote.
specifically.
It's impossible for her to
What?
get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans
Shake it, shit.
terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I
Student
think
loans,
probably her
student
boss,
loans.
if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it
Okay,
again.
I
We'll
gotta-
do it a
I gotta
different way.
be-
He went out
you
and
know,
got
Trump's
rejected again
always at
by
the golf
Supreme
course,
Court.
dude.
So
Come
all
on,
these
man.
students got
Everybody
taunted
likes
with
to
this
have
whole
their
thing
fun
about
in the
this
sun.
whole idea.
Everybody
And
needs
how
to
unfair
take a little
that would have
break.
been part of the
Come on,
reason
guys.
they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay
Millions
off
and
their student
millions.
loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. they can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what
Yeah,
she
it
says
is
about
kind
going
of
to Congress.
hard to
Well,
get that
wonderful. Let's go
approved,
to
though.
Congress, do it. But
Because
the fact is that for years they
I
wanted to get
just
it
don't
out
know
of
what the
Congress
argument
and
from
out of
the
government.
courts
And we did
is
something
specifically.
that everybody said couldn't be done. And now
I
you
do
have
think
a
that's
vote
interesting.
of the people on abortion.
I would have to look
Harris,
into
we'll
that
give you
myself
time to
more, though.
respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in
there should be
America
some restrictions.
is a
right?
woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
Isn't it like
And understand what
3
has been
months and then you
happening
can't
under
abort
Donald
at
Trump's
some point?
abortion
Wasn't
bans.
that was a review? See, this is the problem when you talk about this shit. If you don't know enough of the knowledge, people will shit on you for it.
Are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working one or two jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers.
Oh yeah, that's unfortunate, but that was how it was going to be from the beginning,
can afford
right?
to do it, and what you are putting her through
Because
is unconscionable.
if we had, done this out 52 years ago, as you said, then a lot of this would be, I don't know if it'd be solved, but
in every state where
it would be better. That's the unfortunate part. Or things would be solved. Not everything would be solved.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me,
thank
I have
you.
to respond. Another lie. Another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it.
I think
I've been
IVF
a
is
leader
cool.
on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you
Hey, they're
explain-
talking to. Hey, look, what we always wanted. They're talking to each other.
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor.
I don't know. I
of
think that's a bit of a
Virginia.
stretch.
The governor of Virginia said we put
I think
the
he's a
baby
bit of a
aside and then we
stretch.
determine what we want to do with the
His
baby.
name is not Armstrong.
We're going to turn
A
now
stretch
to immigration
Trump
and border
strong.
security.
I don't know.
We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record
How do
high
people
in the
do
Biden
this
administration. This past
so
June,
long?
President
I'm already
Biden
getting bored
imposed tough
17
asylum
minutes in. What the
restrictions.
fuck?
We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
Cool.
And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more
I can see his.
resources to allow
I can
us
see
to
Trump. He's like
prosecute
China.
transnational criminal
China.
organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened?
It's like
That
fentanyl
bill?
and, or sorry, it's
Donald
China
Trump got on the
and
phone,
Mexico
called
that
up
are
some folks
bringing
in
fentanyl in,
Congress
right?
and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes
not Mexico
at a
specifically.
time
I don't know if they
where
make manufacture
the
it or
people of
whatever.
our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses
Solutions.
the problems at hand. But
I don't
what
know.
we
I
have
don't
in
think-
the former
I
president
don't think
is
either of
someone
them
who
care about
would prefer to run on a
solutions.
problem instead of fixing
I
a
think
problem.
they care about
And I'll tell you something,
enforcing
he's
their
gonna talk
biases
about immigration a lot
on
tonight, even when it's
everybody.
not the subject
They're
that
like,
is being
it's gonna
raised.
work. Trust me.
And I'm gonna
Trust me,
actually do
guys.
something really unusual.
Trust me, guys. I'm
gonna
blue.
invite
I'm red.
you
It's
to
gonna work.
attend one of Donald
Trust
Trump's
me.
rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter, He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
Well, I mean,
and I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president.
I gotta
who
be
actually
real.
puts you first,
That's
and
all
I pledge
that
to you
anybody
that I will.
talks about.
Vice President Harris, thank
I'm
you.
here
President
for
Trump, on
you.
that point, I want to get your
We're
response.
gonna
Let me just ask though, why
do
did you
stuff
kill that bill and successfully
you.
so that would have put thousands of
because we
additional
care so
agents
much
and
about
officers
you.
on the
That's
border?
all the
Those are the
politicians talk
respondents
about.
to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there. And then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible
We have the
rallies
biggest
in the history
rallies.
of
Who was that?
politics.
That was
That's
Shane
because
Gillis.
people wanna
It was
take
like,
the
okay, so
country
this is
back.
how you talk
Our
like Trump.
country is being
Just say
lost.
a
We're a
statement
failing
and then
nation.
try
And
to
it happened
emphasize it the
3.5
next
years
sentence.
ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just
I
to go
have-
into another subject. What
I'm
they
gonna
have
go into
done to
stuff,
our
but-
country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk about it.
So this is one of the things I absolutely hate about these things is that they get asked a question, then they for 1 minute they respond to the question, then they want to go back to the last question and try to talk about that for the next 20 minutes. They both do this. Biden did it.
Rallies are concerned, as far as
I don't
the reason
recall-
they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's very
Oh yeah,
simple
no,
phrase. Make
Clinton
America
versus
great
Trump,
again.
also same
She's
thing.
destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance
Jeez,
of success.
they're all destroying
Not
the
only
country.
success, we'll end up
Don't
being
do that,
Venezuela
Kamala. That's
on
bad.
steroids.
I
Just
can
wanna
do that
clarify,
because
you
no
bring
one
up
can see my
Springfield,
face. But if you
Ohio,
do that,
and
or you
ABC
try
News
to
did reach out to the
try
city
to
manager
mime
there. He
being
told us there have been no
disingenuously
credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed,
sad,
injured, or
that
abused
that
by
looks bad.
individuals
So I would
within the
suggest she
immigrant
doesn't do that.
community. All
I've
this-
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
People on
this is a
television
clear-
say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city
She's got his
manager.
back to the ropes.
But the
Television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog
Uh-oh,
was eaten.
he's on the rant.
The people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says.
See,
there's
this is
no
why I got the
evidence of
boxing
that.
music in the back.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of
Best viewers
former Vice
on this
President
thing
Dick
that I'm not gonna
Cheney
look
and
at.
Congressmember
Wow.
Liz Cheney. And
I'm
if
so
you wanna
totally
really know
not going
the
to-
inside
let me
track
see.
on who the former president
Wow.
is, if he didn't make it clear already.
Account created
just ask people who have
September
worked with him.
2017.
His former chief of staff, a 4-star
All
general,
that
has said he has
just to
contempt
get
for the
banned
Constitution
as
of
a
the United
bot.
States.
That's crazy.
His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of
unfit.
Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you. Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired
I'm a different
most
kind of
those
guy.
people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen.
Oh, what, getting out of
when
Afghanistan?
somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because
that's
with
what
me,
he's
they can
known
write
for.
books with nobody else can.
That's what he's
But
known for.
they
He's
have
known
done
for
such
firing
a poor
people.
job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact,
That's
I
not
got
true.
more votes than any sitting president in history.
Not Reagan. That's
Let
not
me
true.
continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation.
I looked at the map
proposal
for
that
Reagan.
the vice president has reacted
He
to as
he
well.
won by landslide.
President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the
With
U.S.
local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah. It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed
Millions.
common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or
Hold
we're
on,
going
I
to
don't
kill
wanna-
you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela?
I want to show
and
off all
crime
my
in
my
countries all
YouTube
over
stuff.
the world
Hold on.
is way down. You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the
Okay, I guess it's
greatest
not that bad.
mistakes in history for them to allow.
But I'm not gonna show anyone.
And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people.
They
let
destroyed
in,
the
and
fabric.
all over the world.
We used to have
Crime
leather.
is down all over the world except here. Crime here is
Now
up
we only
and
got
through
silk.
the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic
I do find it
crimes,
interesting that
election
they're
interference, has been found
fact-checking
liable
Donald
for
Trump in real
sexual
time,
assault,
because
and his
did they do
next
this
big
before?
Court appearance is in November at his own
I do
criminal
not recall
sentencing.
them. I do not recall
let's be
the
clear,
moderators
where
fact-checking
each
people in
person
real time, but I
stands
do not.
on the issue
Again, I don't
of what is
recall. Maybe they
important
did.
About respect for the rule of
'Cause
law
that kinda-
and respect for law enforcement. The former
know.
vice president called for
I-
defunding federal law enforcement.
'Cause if I say, "Oh, that's
45,000
unfair to him,"
agents. Get this,
and people think
on the
that
day
I'm
after he was arraigned
Trump's
on
side.
34 felony counts.
I'm not trying to be on any of these
So
guys'
let's
side.
talk about what is important in this race. It is important that
I
we
don't really
move
like-
forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris.
Weren't you guys?
Excuse me.
Hasn't she
Every
been the
one
vice
of those
president for 4 years
cases
though?
Was started by them against their political opponent, and I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw
I don't
that
know.
with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fawny Willis to the Attorney
Maybe I
General
should
of
take
New
the
York
politics
and the
tag
DA of
off,
New York.
'cause this
Every one
shit
of those cases,
is-
and then
when it's not
they say,
boring,
"Oh,
I was like,
he was-
okay,
he's a criminal."
so
They're the ones that
I see
made
if
them
whatever
go
I
after them.
say-
By the way, Joe Biden was found
Just like with
essentially
them,
guilty
no
on
matter
the
what you
document
say,
case. And what happened
it
in my
might be
document case?
misconstrued
They said, "Oh,
in a
that's the
certain way.
toughest of them all." A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out.
It's either divisive or it's boring.
weaponization, and they
That's
used
politics.
It, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're
President Trump.
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him.
The court?
It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you.
Oh, because
Vice
the Supreme
President
Court,
Harris,
because
in your last run for
he's
president.
stacked court.
This is the one that weaponized, not me.
I don't know if
She
that's
weaponized.
maybe.
I probably took a bullet to the head
I don't know about that.
because of the things that they say about me. They talk about
J.D. Vance is obviously not going to
democracy.
stop
I'm
him
a threat
because
to democracy.
Kamala
Their
Harris
threat
doesn't stop
to
Biden.
democracy
That's
was
not.
a fake Russia,
I don't know.
investigation
If you don't
that went nowhere.
dissect
We have a lot to
certain
get to, Lindsay.
things
Vice
that they
President
say,
Harris, in your last
then
run for president,
they
you said
just
you
get
wanted
to run
ban
rampant
fracking.
with the shit.
Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't.
'Cause she
you supported
didn't really-
decriminalizing
I guess,
border
again,
crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have
Supreme
not
Court.
changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
Like, I don't know.
So my values have not changed,
They-
and
they-
I'm going to
they-
discuss every
from what I saw,
one of
they-
the-
they
at least
decide
every
with
point
regards
that
to
you've
their
made.
bias,
but
but
in
not, like,
particular, let's talk about fracking
so
'cause we're
hard.
here in Pennsylvania.
I don't know.
I made that very clear in 2020.
I don't know. Maybe I don't have the right information.
I have not banned
Fuck.
fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase
We
in
need nuclear.
domestic oil production in history
We need nuclear.
because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring
I would say
to
she's
the
a boomer.
importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime
Would that
is
friend
based
want
on
her
a
to
value
tell that?
that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not
people that know more
changed.
about
And
her
what is
past will
important
probably
is that
say
there is a
something. I don't know
president who
anything about her
actually
past.
brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars.
Billions.
Many, many billions.
Billions.
And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking? She's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police? She's been against that forever. She gave
You mean
all
for
that
that?
stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. You don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
I don't know. There'll be some Republican pundits who'll be like, "Ooh, he got her." I do not. I don't know. I think he's referencing something. I don't know.
Burned down Minneapolis. She went out and raised money to get him out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think.
Now,
of.
I have heard
Now she
that-
wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
Wait, what?
This is a radical left liberal.
I've never
that will
heard-
do this. She wants to
I
confiscate
heard
your
about
guns,
I've heard
and
about the
she will never allow
transgenders.
fracking
I've
in
heard about
Pennsylvania.
the
If she won the election,
immigrants.
fracking
I've not
in
heard about the
Pennsylvania
transgender
will end
immigrants.
on day one. just to finish one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it.
Oh, I don't know what they're doing with them.
Prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher because you're talking about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, his back really is to the ropes right now.
I was because they had no choice.
Not looking good.
The prices of energy were
He needs old Joe here to gif and gaff.
If she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert soil. These are not good things for the environment, as she understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy. And
he's looking rough. He's looking rough.
Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace.
We know there's the MAGA person that was killed, and then that was shot, and then died, and then there was the police officer that died. I think he was beat, but he died in the hospital. So, only 2 people, from what I remember, only 2 people died.
That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech.
I understand. I'd like yes or no questions, or yes or no. If I was trying to ask questions, I'd love for a yes or no. But you will never get a yes or no answer from any politician. You would not get it from her, you would not get it from him. I do not understand why he's acting like he doesn't understand that that's how this works. That's weird.
Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died.
Well,
and understand,
yeah, one died, if I remember right.
The former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? there were fine people on each side.
Yeah, I actually heard that was taken out of context.
That when it came
I
to the
know
Proud
people
Boys
are
and
going to be
militia,
like, oh no, that was not taken.
President said,
It
the
actually
former
was
president said,
like,
stand back and stand by.
I just need to,
So for
because
everyone
I know that was
watching
taken
who
out of
remembers
context,
what January
unfortunately.
6th was, I say we don't have to go back.
I know. How could there be
Let's
no
not
other
go back.
context?
We're not
How
going
could
back.
there could be no
It's
other
time to
context
turn
for
the
that?
page.
It's just,
And if that was a
I
bridge
think it was
too
a,
far for you, well, there is a
what you call
place
statement, just a throwaway
in
statement. That
our
was the problem.
campaign for you to stand
It just,
for country,
it's
to stand for our
people try to
democracy,
take your
stand
words
for
out of
rule
context.
law,
I know this.
and
He's
to
not
end
a
the chaos,
respectable character,
and to
or
end
what was? He's
the
not a.
approach that is about
He's not someone
attacking
that
the foundations
he
of
does.
our
He does that
democracy
too.
because you don't
So
like
I'm not.
the
I'm well
outcome.
aware of that.
And be clear.
It's
On
just.
that point, Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this.
Nope,
Let's
hopefully
not go
that
back.
was.
Let's chart
Hopefully
a
that was taken out of
course
context too.
for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Man, I
Let me
should
just follow up
actually.
here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that
that
story
sounds
has
fair.
been, as you would say, debunked.
Yeah, I heard it was taken out of
Sean
context.
Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up.
Oh, the
I ask you this,
Project
you talk
20.
about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come
Millions.
through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do. And I would
He's
be
really
very proud
going
to do.
from.
I would
He's
say
all
when
over
we
the
both
place.
leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington,
Down to
D.C.
Georgia.
during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad.
For
it's
a
so
soul to
ridiculous.
steal.
Go down to Washington,
She was in a
D.C.
bind. She was
and
way
let her
behind. She
sign
was
a
gonna make
bill
a
to
deal.
close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4
He's
o'clock
looking a
in
bit
the
rough
morning
right
and you say,
now.
Come on,
Ooh,
come
this is
on
not
down
looking
to the
good.
office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people,
I wanna-
unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say it.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most
Oh,
votes
they
any
investigated it.
sitting president has ever
I-
gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should
the
never
lawyers-
be thinking about it.
his lawyers did everything they could to challenge it, and you know, at that point, he went through the legal process, and we should respect that. But then he still lost, so you know, it is what it is, right? And he should be able to say that,
to get them
right?
to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in. Practically.
English.
And these people are trying to get them to vote, and that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker, we didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
They
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread
standing.
fraud.
That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing.
I don't know. What does that mean?
That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have.
I feel like I need
That's
another
old
alien
news. And the
for this
problem
one.
that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by whiskers, so he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself.
Oh.
But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was,
won by
President Trump about this upcoming election.
Because I don't want to accuse him of being
people who cheated, and then he lists
biased for her side.
Election officials. He says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent.
Because I wouldn't want him to.
Which will include long-term.
I don't think that's biased.
One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, "We won't let Donald Trump intimidate us.
Side, though.
We won't let him suppress."
No, it's not.
Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom work with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline.
Now, I think that is true, right?
In our country, he ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw
like literally
just a few months ago,
look at his mouth.
And if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7th,
we got here back
Hamas,
in 1948.
A terrorist organization.
That's all I'll say.
Slaughtered.
Because people get really fucking
many of them young
weird about.
Simply
well, not weird. They just get angry.
Women were
they get angry.
Raped.
Whatever you say, anything, any claim when it comes to Israel, Hamas, Israel, Hamas, Israel, Palestine, Israel, Hamas. You say Israeli government versus Hamas. Israel, the country versus Palestine. It's not really versus, right? So, you know, why don't you just say Netanyahu versus Hamas? Come on. Or the government. I think it's Israeli army. That's basically what you're saying.
And so we will continue to work around the clock on that.
So she
work
just
around the clock,
she is
also understanding
filler
that
words
we
here.
must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security,
as you can hear,
and the dignity
she's trying to get
deserve.
all the left-wing voters,
how would you negotiate
not just
with
the
and
Israeli
also
ones.
Hamas in order to get the
So
hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent
I know what
civilians in
happened
Gaza?
at the DNC,
or
I know what the protests for the
president,
DNC
Russia
were.
would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress.
Why am I seeing her face right now?
She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party.
Do the same that you did with her. I don't.
She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way,
I want to be fair.
Population, because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before
I do not think he will be able to do that.
Vice President Harris,
it's a bit bigger than him.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he
did he use the word dictator?
That he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant.
Do you say
it
that?
is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un, and it is absolutely well known.
So to counteract his lies, she's going to make some lies against him.
For you to be
come on,
president
dude.
again, because they're so clear.
Because
they can manipulate you.
I don't even need to friggin'.
And that is why.
Because we already know that he's gonna shit talk, but then she's gonna shit talk back though.
You are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
And she's the one that caused it. That's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week. Because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever
like I
made,
said,
Nord Stream 2, the
what we were
biggest
talking about
pipeline
before,
anywhere in the world,
we're talking about
going to
something
Germany
completely
and all
different,
over
man.
Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Yeah, like I said, I do not recall in the past where they will fact check you right there. That is interesting. I do not. They'll do a little. Oh no, that was wrong, sir. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing.
It was a regular day for 19-year-old Melissa Witt.
So hopefully I'm wrong about that, cause I don't want. I don't want this shit to be something that they now do. I don't know. Maybe they said that they will do this now. They'll fact check in real time any candidate that makes a lie. Although I think they both lied basically at some point. Sure. If you actually look at it, Trump seems to be more prone to lying, but that's how politicians do. I can't stress enough how much I do not give a fuck. It's hard for me to give a fuck. But yeah, if I'm gonna be real, he does lie more, but it seems to that just seems to be his thing. He just says whatever. Oh, hello. Oh, that's not okay. Dang. What was this? Oh, that's Jason. Hey, wait. Oh, Jason Momoa was he was Conan, right? Back in the day. Huh. That's interesting. Oh no. Cause the one thing that I would like not to see is any person that is trying to say well, no, I already said what I needed to say. If they said that they were going to implement this policy, that's fine. But if they didn't say that, if they said they're going to implement this policy of fact checking you right there during the debate, then that's fine. Excuse me. But if they didn't say that, and this is prior to the debate, if they didn't say that, then I wonder why they're doing that. But yeah, my man's not looking good. It looks like he's incredibly defensive. He's like, and should we be talking about the policies and how they're going to help change our world? Of course we should. That's a thing that everyone cares about. But the reality is, no one gives a fuck about that. No person. Everyone. All the people on the Democrat side started leaving Biden just because he said just because he couldn't talk for I think if you bring in all the parts where he couldn't talk, it only amounts up to 2 minutes in like a 2-hour debate. So this whole thing about what should we care about? Policies, blah blah blah, all that bullshit. What do we actually care about? How the person looks. Are they they're back against the road? Are they strong? Do they project confidence? Are they my guy? Are they my girl? Or my woman? Are they the leader that I think they should be? And it's more of it's a popularity contest. It's a goddamn popularity contest. So, I know I need to vote, so I do vote. I just don't vote for the two parties. Cause I don't know. Well, I do know. There's more than just one reason for that. I like going against the grain. I like being part of something. I don't want to be mainstream, man. Mainstream is boring, bruh. Anyway. Yeah. Politics really does require that you know stuff. If you want to be the one that debunks stuff in real time, such as the moderators, then you know, you got to be that guy that knows his stuff in order to say that. I don't know. Well, they're back.
News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse.
Isn't Ukraine one of our allies? Can't you just say, yes, I want Ukraine to win?
Look, we're in for 250 billion or more, because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO.
I see the strategy he's using.
Billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars.
This whole court is out of order.
We're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening.
That weak comment got to him.
50 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win,
oh snap! He's making some claims.
What I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin,
I actually do think that the war wouldn't have. I don't think Putin would have invaded on if Trump was president. I actually think that's true. But you know, there's different reasons for that. So it's not like, oh, Trump was so amazing that he couldn't invade. I just think that, well, I think that Trump is a wild card.
No idea how to stop it, and now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III.
Russia would actually, Putin would actually be going up against NATO fully if Trump was president at that point.
We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify here,
they threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he?
Oh, actually, this is a good strategy.
Mr. President,
this is actually a good strategy.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest
if he attacks that specific thing? You guys threw Biden out real bad. But it has to be in line with the question, though, really.
From being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand
what does she mean by give it up?
I actually
she allowed
Zelensky
like he wouldn't give money to Ukraine
through force
anymore.
To change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense.
Yeah.
And because of our support, because of
there
the
she goes.
air defense,
She's not lying.
the ammunition, the
Or, no,
artillery,
she's not lying.
the javelins, the Abrams
The
tanks
idea
that we have
is a
provided,
lie.
Ukraine stands as an independent
'Cause
and free
it's just
country.
NATO,
If
right?
Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda
I don't know.
is not just about Ukraine.
Well, maybe.
Understand
I could see.
why the
I could see a
European
version of that
allies and our
happening.
NATO allies
Although,
are
you know,
so thankful
I don't know.
that you are no longer
Yeah.
president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance.
Because
the
I
world has
heard,
ever known,
what's
which
his
is
name?
NATO.
That one
And
guy
what
who
we have
talked about
done
why
to
Ukraine
preserve
is in the position
the
it's
ability
in
of
right now.
Zelensky and the
That goes all the way
Ukrainians
back
to
to
fight
like
for their independence. Otherwise,
2014.
Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe,
Crimea.
starting with
The
Poland.
first-
And why don't
the
you
first
tell the
domino,
800,000
so
Polish
to speak.
Americans right here in
So
Pennsylvania,
like these
how
two people
quickly
don't
you
have
would
anything to
give
do
up
with that. So I don't
for
know.
the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President
You
Harris,
don't
thank you.
need
We
a
heard from
friendship
both of
with
you
them,
on
but you do
Ukraine
need a
tonight.
good relationship with
Afghanistan
them
came
because
up
they're
in the
still
last hour.
leaders. That's the only thing
I
I'd
wanted her
say.
to respond to something you said earlier, and now.
And
please,
Biden knows
I'll
that
give you
too.
a minute here.
That's the reason why
Putin would
I
be
don't.
sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow quiet.
I think it was just.
He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons.
Yeah,
Nobody ever
the
thinks
nuclear
about
weapons
that.
actually do
And
matter because
eventually,
that's what we
maybe
got.
he'll use them, and
We made
maybe
Ukraine
hasn't been
get
that
not get
threatening,
rid of their
but
nuclear weapons.
He
What was
does
it?
have that.
No, we
Something we don't even like to talk
we made
about.
sure that they
Nobody
couldn't
likes to
join
talk
NATO.
about it.
Oh my
But
God,
just so you
I'm
understand,
I'm
they
not
sent
remembering
her to
correctly.
negotiate peace before this
It's
war
one of those.
started. 3 days
We made sure
later,
that
he
Ukraine
went
doesn't
in
have
and he
nuclear
started
weapons.
the war, because
And that's one of the
everything
reasons
they
why
said was weak
Russia
and
invaded
stupid.
Ukraine.
They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary.
I think
they
that's it.
sent her in to negotiate
Correct me if I'm wrong.
with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country.
Didn't you say that about
She goes
Obama?
down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something.
Damn,
She
everybody's
is a
the worst
horrible
president.
negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said
Is
you went
that-
to
it was
negotiate with
2022.
Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fella.
Okay,
And
well,
that
answer
is
the
another
question.
one.
Thank you.
When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times.
I think
The
he asked
reality is
if
it
you
has been
met Putin.
about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength,
Bitch.
understanding that the
You would answer
alliances
the
we
question.
have around
Jesus
the
Christ.
world
This is what I
are
fucking.
dependent
Oh my
on
God.
our ability to look out for our friends and not
'Cause she's the
favor
one that's
our
not-
enemies
like,
because
we know-
you adore
We know
strongmen
Trump lies,
instead of
okay? But
caring
she's supposed to
about
be the one that
democracy.
stays
And
on
that is
topic.
very much
And then
what is at
what the
stake
fuck?
here. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands
Now-
the significance of
Now,
America's role
David
and
Muir,
responsibility
he should say,
in terms of ensuring
Madam
that
President,
there
or
is
not Madam
stability
President,
and ensuring we stand
Vice
up
President,
for
please
our
get back to the topic.
principles
I
and not
asked if
sell
you
them
said,
for
I
the-
asked if
for
you
the
if you
benefit
met
of
Putin.
personal flattery.
Excuse
We
me.
talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour.
Why
of
did
this
he not
debate.
interrupt her?
I
That is-
want to move on to
this is-
Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Maybe he didn't-
got these countries,
Because I
the
think he
28
didn't
countries at the
interrupt
time, to pay
Trump
up.
in
He
those
said, "I've
in those
never seen."
problems.
He's
So
the
maybe
head of
I should
NATO.
I
He
should
said,
come
"I've
back.
never seen
But
it.
it is
For years, we were
it is
paying
interest-
almost all of
maybe
NATO.
I'm wrong.
We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before: if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it.
See?
He said it was one of the most
See, I told-
incredible jobs that he's
Now
ever
he's
seen
interrupting
done.
Trump.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the
Whatever.
first hour. of the
'Cause that's
debate,
not that
And we
important.
witnessed a poignant moment.
I think
today on
he's
Capitol
doing
Hill
that
honoring
on-
the soldiers who died
with regards
in
to
the chaotic
time, though.
withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do
'Cause-
want to ask the Vice President.
It entered my mind. It entered my mind palace that he could be a little bit biased more towards Kamala, and I don't like that. And now I keep seeing it. I need to get rid of that because I need to be more rational thinking than that.
America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine.
Iran, didn't they just bomb? Did they kill 3 of our soldiers? No, where were those soldiers located?
Deal. And here's how it went down.
They were located in Israel, right?
The Afghan government.
I mean, so that's what I'm saying. Like, if our soldiers die
the negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000
in there somewhere, isn't that technically a? I guess it's not technically a.
No, get this.
Oh, hold on.
And the
I gotta
at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president,
she's gonna say a curse word.
To Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility.
I don't know. Is this as
of the president
is this
of the
as important as she's claiming, or is it really not that? I don't know.
Level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold.
I mean, I did hear that one thing they said about the military. Hopefully that wasn't taken out of context as well, but he did kind of shit on the military.
So, if you take a look at that,
at least from the that
the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them with snipers
and bombs and IEDs.
Because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul was the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have to...
I told him, come on, Abdul. You got to stop, man.
Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish,
that sucked. I was kind of pissed off at that. I know how much that shit costs.
You have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal.
Yeah, he's kind of random.
In my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our
country.
See,
look at this. This is just a shit throwing fest. Shit throwing fest.
Because they saw how incompetent
look at the two monkeys.
And her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago.
Now, I did not either. I gotta admit.
She wants to be known as black.
I didn't know she was black.
I want to ask the bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care.
I didn't know
what she is.
I don't know what the fuck she is either. That's what I'm saying.
You make a big deal out of something.
I thought she was. I thought she was maybe half black, but she's not half black. She's like a third black.
I don't know.
Right?
I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black. And that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's
First, I thought she was black,
that's up to her.
and I found she was black.
President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I am black. That's my thoughts.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that
I am Negro. I am Air Force
wants
Negro.
To be president, he has consistently over the course of his career attempted to use race to divide the American
Negro Force One. Don't worry, I can say that because I'm also black, just like her. 100%. We're both 100% black. That's the thing.
That is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember,
he's not dividing if he's. Come on, this is fucking bullshit. Get the fuck out of here. Is it? I didn't know she's black. I'd say the same exact thing. I didn't know she's fucking black. I thought she's like half Indian, half.
To black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times.
Oh yeah, I hear that people are talking about this a lot.
Black and Latino boys who were innocent. The Central Park Five.
I tried looking this up. I don't, because I know what his response to that was. Because he'd never specified any of their names, and so I think that's what he's trying to get away with. But I don't, because I know he did not specify their names. So
want someone who understands as I do. I travel our country.
If I don't know, because he could just be trying to say, yeah, well, I didn't specify their names, so it wasn't about them, but it could have been. So that's another word.
Their fingers at each other.
Yeah, because you don't do that, Kamala. You never have done that.
Tell me. Can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people?
You know that's not how presidents get elected. Well, she knows that, but she has to play the fool. They both have to play the fool, or they have to play like they don't know exactly what I said.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Exactly what I was talking about.
Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country.
I don't know about that.
There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty...
Yeah, I don't know anything about the case, though, so I can't speak to that.
Ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger.
No president really has that much control over the economy.
They have no idea what a good
so if any of them ever say, I did this for the economy, they might have done something, but it's not as significant as they would like to hope.
I don't know the gentleman, she says.
Significance
inflation we've ever had,
is subjective.
A horrible economy because
overall,
inflation has made it so bad.
Overall, the working forces outside of the president's grasp ultimately make up what the economy does. Because I'm not gonna tear into Obama for the 2008 housing crash, dude. That's what I'm saying.
What is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging.
You just did that, though. Oh, the American people.
In what we can do
I thought she was like disparaging each other. Because everybody, this is how it works. You have to disparage the other person at some point. You want to have a nice even balance of disparaging the other person but acting like you don't care about disparaging them. It just so happens.
Their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas,
Trump didn't read that memo though. He kind of just does disparage more. He disparages the individual more.
To help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation I believe, David, that people really want tonight.
Let's see if I don't know how that's going to work, but okay.
About belittling and name calling Let's turn the page.
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
Yeah,
To defund
he
the police.
don't.
She has a
This is a
plan
bad time to speak, dude.
confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
This is a bad time to
Plan
speak.
Move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking
It's a bad time to
in
speak.
Pennsylvania
Please shut up.
or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her
Does
plan
not
is
make you look
until
good.
just recently.
This makes you look.
President Trump,
Oh, okay. Now she's doing it. Now he gets away with it. See, this is how it works.
I'm sorry,
If she,
we're gonna-
now she's allowed. She allowed him. He was gonna look bad, but now she's allowing him. That's so crazy. That's so crazy.
To repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was
Obama-
lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today. And what I said that if we come up with
You know,
something,
I've
and we
heard
are working
I've heard
on things,
bad stuff about
we're gonna do
Obamacare.
it,
I
and we're
heard
gonna
good
replace
stuff.
it.
So
But
I don't know.
Remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that,
I
we
heard
would
that
have
it's
had a
supposed to
much
actually
better
get. I heard
plan
the
than Obamacare.
Yeah,
But
no.
the
Obviously,
Democrats
it
came
gives
up, they wouldn't vote for it.
healthcare to people
I
that
had a
wouldn't have
choice to
it.
make
But
when
I
was
heard that
president.
it forces you
Do I
something like
save
that.
it and make it as good as it can
So
be,
you can't
never
change
be
from it?
great,
I don't
or
know.
Do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation.
The one
even though
bad thing I
politically
heard
it would have been
was
good
that
to just let it rot and
The
let it go
person had
away.
it and they didn't.
I decided, and I told
and
my
it end
people,
up
the top
if
people,
they
and
had
they're
not
very
had
good people, I had a lot of
Obamacare,
good
then they
people in
would
this-
have.
that administration.
They wouldn't have.
We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too. And
think
so
it's
do
the
they.
same
They have
thing
really
with,
bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of
with
them. They just-
the wait times in like
I
Canada
had a
and such.
choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be?
I know.
Or do
I
let
don't
it
recall
rot?
that. I just
And
remember the.
saved it. I did the
I
right
recall
thing.
how I
But
felt.
it's still
I don't recall the
never going to be
information.
great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if
I mean, none of them have a plan. Why is she smiling like she actually has a good plan? Like, none of them have a plan. I mean, some, I can't say that, but
you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant
because
future.
if they say they have a plan, because they change the plans too, so it's not really like a. So I don't care for. Oh, do you have a plan? No, hahaha, you don't have a plan. Like that's not something I give a care about.
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point
No.
that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away.
Fracking?
Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not
What?
taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, let's just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was
Does she
president,
need to
60 times
to
he tried to get
reference
rid
that?
of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who
Yeah.
you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice
Pretty sure they
president,
could still
and
do
we,
that,
over the
but
last
I don't
4
know.
years have strengthened the Affordable Care
I don't know
Act.
enough about it.
We have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it, pass his prologue in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
She made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It was all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have
Yeah,
another issue
that's
that
what I
we
heard
want
is
to get to
the
that's
problem.
important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump,
The
with
problem
regard
of
to the environment,
government
you
health
say
care
that we have
in
to
that
have
form,
clean air and clean water.
that it takes a
Vice
while.
President Harris, you call climate change
But
an
the small stuff,
existential threat. The question to you
because it
both
was
tonight
like,
is what would you do
I know there's a lot
to
of
fight climate change, and Vice President
there's a lot of
Harris,
countries
to
that
start
have
with you, 1 minute
government
for
health
each.
care. I only
Well,
know
the former
Canada and
president
Costa
has
Rica.
said that climate change
And
is
the
a hoax.
small stuff they can get really good.
And
I think
what we
Japan
know
has
is
it
that
too,
it is
right?
very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state
You get the
who has
small stuff really quick,
experienced
but
these extreme weather
harder
occurrences, who now
stuff
is either
like
being denied
surgeries
home
that takes a
insurance or
little
it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue.
The young people.
And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy while we have also
Nuclear?
increased domestic gas production to historic
Domestic
levels. We
gas
have created
production.
over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy
you were always going to get them, though,
in
because
American-made products, American
unions,
automobiles. It includes,
from what I understand, always go
what we can
left
do
wing,
around
always vote
American
left wing. So
manufacturing and
it does.
opening up
She's like,
auto plants,
she's the vessel.
not closing
She's not
them
the
like
person.
happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost
'Cause,
10,000 manufacturing jobs this last
freaking
month.
Republicans
It's going-
are always
they're all leaving.
anti-union.
They're building big auto
Well, if they're
plants in
Reagan
Mexico,
Republicans, right?
In many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our
Like,
country.
you're for
because
China.
they will
You're for
kill
China. Everybody
United Auto Workers
everybody has to
and
work
any
with China.
auto worker,
I
whether
did.
it's in Detroit
Come
or
on.
South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son.
Man, this
They
guy's
get
sweating.
all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million?
Why is he? Why is he? Why?
Why did he get? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia.
Just like crooked Hillary, we got crooked Kamala. Look, her name's got a K in it. K for crooked.
ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
Maybe I spoke too soon.
Is a fantasy.
Maybe it actually is,
Baywatch was
or whatever. Maybe it actually is interesting. I hope all my millions of subscribers on my channel, when I upload this, watch fully through so I can find all of my terrible, radical, I don't know, whatever the fuck they think, whichever side they think I lean, that side policies and thought processes. Boom, boom, boom. Dang, Pamela Anderson. Oof. Still got it. Oof. Maybe that's the it's the $1 million Botox. I don't know. I don't know, whoever that is, she's got it. All right. Betrayal. I have the politics tag or category on, and there's only 2,100 viewers. That's insane because I know for a fact that Hassan is watching this. So there has to be, in my opinion, 100,000 viewers watching this or on this category. So the number I'm looking at is definitely bullshit. Oh, Hassan and Asmongold, both of them. So it has to be like 500,000. Who else talks about politics that's big on Twitch? Well, that's about it. Everyone else kind of actually tries to do, you know, normal Twitch stuff. Like video games. I guess both of them actually do video games. I didn't know. I don't watch Hassan. You'll see my follow list if you see my follow list. You already know. It is what it is. I can't change it. But I didn't know Hassan actually played video games. That was crazy to me. I thought he literally just talks about politics the entire time. Also, I hope, you know what, I'll try to play Portal 2 tomorrow. Yeah. Excuse me. Excuse me. Let me look at my YouTube, cause if I'm not gonna, I want to make sure that I don't do the same thing all over again with my my Portal 2 video, cause like I said, today I thought today was 9/11, so I did the whole thing with the Lois Griffin speech, but let's see. Oh, dang it. Yeah, I did that here. Dang it. I can't do it tomorrow. I'm gonna do the same thing over and over again. What? 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 Come on. Oh yeah, I can stream on YouTube as well. Oh. Okay, no, 10 hours is enough. Yeah, this goes on forever. It's been...
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements and Vice
Thank
President.
God, Jesus.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back.
Actually, I'd like to go
and
back.
I do believe that
I like
the
prices
American
from
people
before.
know we all have so much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living.
And that's what he's going to talk about, too.
In what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was the DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator.
I don't know if people want my solution.
And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never
it's not really a
solution.
Solution to abortion.
Or a witness, are you a Republican
not
or a
solution,
Democrat?
but you know,
the only
views,
thing
thoughts,
I ever
whatever.
ask them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing
I don't think you got that long.
in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
I do feel like that is a good point. You don't want to give him that win, but that is a good point.
Years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision.
No nuclear?
I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end
China.
up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like
it's
no
not
other
a war,
because
but
of
it's a
nuclear
conflict.
weapons, the power of weaponry.
Well, it's not a conflict the way Russia is.
She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President
Okay,
Trump,
good.
thank you.
Thought he was gonna
And
keep
that is
ranting.
our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National.
I think you brought up that was a good thing to stay on, though. If she's here and she's promising these things, well, she's already in the position to do it. So why isn't she doing it?
And we are here live on ABC with our post-debate comments. I'm Martha Raddatz.
And I do not care about post-debate comments, and I also don't care about. I mean, I care about shit, but you know, it is what it is. I don't know. I don't have a reason to keep talking shit. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Do I have post-debate things to say? I don't know. I don't know. I think Kamala looked better than Trump. He was kind of getting mad there. And I care to talk about that part because that's what the American public's gonna look at. Oh, does he exude confidence? Is he a stable person? Is she a stable person? Does she exude confidence? That's what people care about. I don't know. I think Kamala's gonna come out looking better in this. My thought. But so long as people remember that last statement they said, if she is in the office right now and she wants to promise all this shit, why hasn't she done it? I think that's probably his strongest thing to talk about. If we get past all the filler that they talked about, I think like over half of this was just filler of them attacking each other. I don't know, because we know they'll speak a big game about their policies, and once they get in the presidency, they'll be like, yeah, I guess it didn't work out, guys. We can't really do that. Sorry about that. But thanks for voting me in. So, you know, I don't really put a lot into the policy positions that they claim, as if I actually think that they're going to follow through with them. But you can talk about it as if, you know, well, is actually a good policy. I have to remember the policies that they said, because I don't think they actually said any policies. They just said, I got a plan. And I don't got a plan, but I'll get a plan. Kind of just, you know, kind of edging the American public to the point, giving them blue balls, but never giving the climax. Okay, I'm done because now I'm talking about. Okay, that's what I got to talk about. So yeah, there's politics. Probably, I don't know. Fuck. Tell me if you want to hear more bullshit that I spew. Or maybe you want to hear more bullshit that they spew. I don't know. Whatever. Bye.